Let's start with the updated draft order. And wild times on Monday night. Debo's Eagles succumb to Drew Lock and the Seattle Seahawks in a wild finish. That doesn't change where they're still inside the playoff bubble. Debo's Eagles are, but the top 10 did some little rearranging here. And there's a chance actually that the Eagles will be something. The Patriots, they're about a 30% chance to get the first overall pick, which is crazy. They could lose out. The Carolina Panthers, who won a game, finally, the first game with interim coach Chris Tabor, they could win out. And the old Patriots could be in position to get that quarterback there. So if you look at the draft order here, Carolina still has that first pick that's going to Chicago. Then the Patriots, the Cardinals, Washington, who has benched Sam Howell down the stretch here. They're out of the conversation for the playoffs. Chicago Bears with their original pick at number 5. The Giants, Jets, Chargers, Tennessee, and Atlanta. And let me start at the bottom and work our way up because that, oh my gosh, I just can't. We'll talk about this later in the show as well. That Desmond Ridder interception was one of the most backbreaking interceptions of the entire season, just from a one-play perspective. It was deep in the red zone for the Falcons. There was about 7 minutes to go in the game. They were winning 7-6, and that would have salted the game away. Terrible weather. Instead, he throws a terrible, horrible, unexplainable interception. Bryce Young marches down the field and sets up the game-winning field goal. Great win for the Falcons, the Panthers, and that loss sent Des Ridder to the bench. And I just want to give you this stat. I saw this in Athletic after the game ended on Sunday. For this season, Ridder has 6 turnovers in the red zone, 3 fumbles, and 3 interceptions. He is tied for third most turnovers in the NFL with 16. It's unsustainable, and he's a great guy. He was a lot of fun to talk to. At the combine, you got a sense of how serious he was about his job, but it just hasn't translated yet to the field. If you're the Falcons at 10, and there's a Jaden Daniels sitting there, how do you explain passing on him?
Yeah, I don't know if you can. If Jaden Daniels is their third quarterback, or Penix potentially Jr., Michael Penix Jr. But right now, and Desmond Ridder was a great kid, all A pluses across the board on the pre-draft process. Intelligent. The biggest issue I had with him coming out was I thought he was a very good athlete for his size, but I really questioned his accuracy. What you're seeing here now is decision-making issues, especially in the red zone, taking points off the board. So, okay, first-year starter, full-time starter, I can maybe not accept, but understand 1 or 2 times where you screw it up and you do something and not take care of the football in the red zone. But it seems to continually show its ugly head. And this was another prime example. It's horrible conditions, rain, wet, cold, and you're right there to finish the game. Just don't make a bonehead play. So why or what the reason was that he made that bonehead play, I don't know, but you can't do that. And you should have learned from your mistakes. I understand rookies, and we've talked about it. We talked about it with Bryce Young. They're going to make their mistakes, all these rookie quarterbacks. But are they able to learn from their mistakes? And it seems, for as intelligent as Desmond Ridder is, understanding the game situation, understanding that that's the fourth quarter, and you know that you're going to win the game probably if you kick a field goal there, because it's highly unlikely, although Bryce Young took him down for the game-winning field goal at the end there. But more than likely, they're not going to be able to move the ball down the field, and you can walk off with a game-winning score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. But number one rule that would just drive me insane, drive coaches insane, is why he's probably going to get benched again. Don't turn the ball over in a critical situation, a game in the red zone, taking points off the board. That eventually cost them the game.
And I believe Arthur Smith has decided to turn to Taylor Heineke, the backup, once again. So the second time Desmond Ridder's been benched, and perhaps maybe the last. We'll see. You hope it works out for him, but it just hasn't yet. On that interception that it was Xavier Woods made the play, it looked like Xavier Woods was behind the Falcons receiver to his left, to Dez's left. To his right, about 5 yards, Cordero Patterson, the guy you drafted, was coming on an over. But there were 3 Panthers standing there. It looked like he didn't see Xavier Woods. He was sort of hidden by the receiver in front of him, and then he threw it right in the stomach. I mean, it was worst-case scenario all the way around. All right, let's go back up to the top here, and we'll start with that pick that the Bears have at number 1. by virtue of the Carolina Panthers trading up last spring. There's about a 74% chance the Panthers end up with this pick, even if they lose their next 2 games, and that checks out.
Chicago ends up with
Chicago,
this pick.
sorry, right. Golly, David Tepper would love to have that pick. Chicago ends up with that pick, and then we're going to have a conversation from here to the end of time about what Chicago should do with it. I went back and watched last week's win. Close your ears here. The Bears win over the Lions, and Justin Fields did some good things, but there's still a handful of moments where the ball's not coming out on time. He's not seeing the open receiver, and these are long, hard conversations you're going to have throughout the process before you make that ultimate decision, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, and I've watched a lot of his games. I watched that game you mentioned, the Detroit. I watched the game last week. And the question is, there's actually no question about his athleticism and his ability to make plays with his legs, because Detroit, he seems to run for 5,000 yards every time he plays against the Detroit Lions, which baffles me on trying to do something to stop him from hurting you. Keep him in the pocket. He's not a true pocket passer. He still struggles to get through his progressions. He has tendency to hold the ball, but he is a very talented thrower down the field. He has more than enough arm talent to make throws and off-schedule plays and everything you want. I mean, the launch into the end zone at the end of that Cleveland game was a great throw. You know, you gave your team a chance by just putting it up there, and unfortunately, Mooney dropped the ball, and that would have won the game. When he targets DJ Moore, he has 144 quarterback rating. All the other targets on that roster, his quarterback rating's around 72, 73. So the question is, if you have DJ Moore, and let's say you ended up with a Marvin Harrison Jr., who also comes from Ohio State, does that propel him to the next level, having 2 of those type receivers as they continue to get better on defense and build around them? But adding a Marvin Harrison Jr. to the mix to go along with DJ Moore, does that elevate his quarterback play? I don't know if it's going to increase, which he needs to improve on. And I have the biggest question is his processing. And when he's in the pocket, can he get through his progressions or not? That I don't know.
You know, it's funny, Rick. I was talking with our buddy BMAC about this on HQ after the Monday night game in which Debo's Eagles found a way to lose to the Seahawks, and the struggles that the Eagles offense is having with Jalen Hurts and new offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, and how important Shane Steichen was to what they were able to do. And not to take anything away from Jalen, but I think that marriage is one that we maybe don't talk enough about, the OC and the quarterback. And I mentioned that as we were talking about Justin Fields and Luke Getsy, that relationship in terms of working on the field doesn't appear to be a home run. Like, they need to go to some more marriage counseling to put it in marriage terms. Their professional relationship, they may be best friends. But I mention that because if you look at the teams that are currently in the NFC that are inside the playoff bubble, at number 1, of course, is Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. That makes sense. Mike McCarthy's had a renaissance of sorts with Dak Prescott in terms of his play calling. Your guy, Ben Johnson and Jared Goff, match made in heaven. Even Canales down in Tampa Bay with Baker. Baker had a fantastic game over the weekend. Perfect passer rating in Lambeau Field, the first visiting quarterback to do that in the history of Lambeau. And then you have KOC, Kevin O'Connell, and the magic he's been able to do with guys not named Kirk Cousins. And even when Kirk was healthy, Kirk was playing at a high level. And then finally, I'll mention Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Those teams are in the playoffs, and they all have OCs and QBs that are on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's the critical piece of this, is how that marriage, as you put it in your terms, I would put it in the football relationship business.
Okay.
But that's critical. And, you know, right now, I don't know if Getsy and Justin Fields are the right match or not. So, but Justin Fields has played better this year than he has as a passer. So who knows? But it's year 2. So maybe year 3, they go to your marriage counseling suggestion and end up becoming a match made in heaven.
That could be our racket. We start a marriage counseling QB OC business. Maybe I'll make enough money to live in your guest house out there on the island. That would be nice.
Oh, yeah. The guest house, just very humble, little shack here on the island. Just
I love that you're struggling to find words that describe the palatial estate with which you find yourself.
Can I ask a quick hypothetical? I know Rick hates hypotheticals, but
Debo, don't ask anything until you get a better attitude, because you've been kind of,
you got a bad attitude.
It's like you're pissy today for some reason, and I don't know why. It's, we need to go to marriage counseling. I think all three of us.
Ryan, who was more pissy at 11:07 before we started recording this?
I was going to say it's a sad day when I'm the happiest person on the podcast. So we got some work to do, boys. What's your question?
Hypothetically, Debo? Let's just say the Panthers, they owned the #1 pick last year and didn't have to make that trade. They drafted Bryce Young. If they had the #1 pick this year, what would they do?
Oh, Rick, what are we doing?
Oh,
Rick doesn't want to talk about this, Debo.
I'm going to either trade out and accumulate more picks that I gave up for Bryce Young, or I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. because I think that would be a home run to put him with Bryce Young.
You know what I actually might even think about doing, Rick, if I were in Debo's scenario? I might trade down and get a couple first rounders, maybe stay inside the top 10, and I might take Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. Like, you just have to fix the guys who can't run in the open field. Now, there'll be guys in rounds 2 and 3 and day 3 that we'll talk about as we get to the process, but just sort of galaxy brain fixing the offense as quickly as possible. That could be one solution. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. and then an offensive lineman, if you're able to trade down 1 or 2 spots, something like that. But yeah,
so
I think
no thought to trade Bryce and draft Caleb.
No, none.
Where are you trading Bryce #1? I would actually, the Steelers, I would give a first round pick for Bryce Young. Like, I'm not even kidding. In a heartbeat. Oh my gosh, I don't want to talk. That's how precarious my situation is. That I would love the idea of Bryce Young. I would drive him to Pittsburgh, but I don't think so. Like, do you think there's anyone in the league just making you speculate? I know you do love doing hypotheticals, Rick, that would be willing to move on from Bryce after year 1 for whatever they thought the franchise quarterback was?
Do that. You just gave up all that draft capital, and is it his fault? Some of it, the growing pains, but boy, we're throwing. How do you say those terms? It's
the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, you're splitting the baby in half and throwing them both out in the bathwater. I don't, whatever
I like
the
that better.
terminology is. My Spielman mind.
We'll talk more about Bryce later. That's a little tease, but just wanted to ask your favorite hypothetical there.
We got a new one. I got a new analogy out of it, though. You split the baby in half, then you throw it out with the bathwater. I like that. All right, let's talk.
Both halves.
Let's talk about the Patriots at #2. Again, as I mentioned, they could lose out and have something like a quarter to 30%, 25 to 33% chance to get that first overall pick. We don't know who the coach is going to be. We don't know what the front office is going to look like in New England. All the reports are such that Bill Belichick maybe will be coaching his last game in 3 or 4 weeks from now. If you're the Patriots, well, we've said this thousands of times already, they have to get a quarterback. If you're at #1, Rick, and you're the New England Patriots, not knowing anything about the staff or anything, who are you taking?
Right. Caleb Williams. My God.
Okay.
We've talked about it 100 times.
I didn't know.
Williams or Drake May. Caleb Williams first, and then Drake May.
I'm going to tell you something that I was thinking about yesterday, because I don't mean me and you, just everyone in the draft meeting, even in the NFL, are regularly wrong about, a lot of the draft, because it's hard to predict. I might be of the opinion, by the time it's all said and done, that Jaden Daniels will be my quarterback too. I eagerly await your response to that.
Let's count to 10, 28 days. That is a great thought, and I'm sure a lot of that may be brought up in draft meetings. He had an incredible year.
What are the percentage chances, do you think, 5 years from now, Jaden Daniels is better than Drake May or even Caleb? I mean, it's not outrageous, right?
No. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in this league.
Okay. Because what happens is you fall into the pattern, we being me, of like, oh, everyone just rubber stamps this quarterback as QB1 or QB2. It happened with me with Zach Wilson. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe Jaden is going to be better. I just think that's something I don't want to be a follower, Rick. I want to be a leader. That's what I'm saying here.
That's why you're the GM of this podcast, and I'm just a scout in the corner, sitting next to the owner.
Yep, talking to the owner. That's right. Giving them some ideas that I may not agree with. All right, so if you're Patriots, you're taking Caleb, according to Rick. I think that's right. I think you don't overthink it. You take Caleb and you move on. And by the way, if you're going to be in that division with Josh Allen, you need someone that's Josh Allen-like. And I think Drake May has a chance to be a good quarterback. It felt like to me, tell me what you think of this. Caleb did a better job of dragging that USC offense up and down the field, even though they lost 5 games, than Drake did at UNC.
I think that Drake did a pretty incredible job this year with the talent around him.
Yeah. I'm not saying, yeah.
I'm a Drake May fan, so I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I like Drake May too. Don't get me wrong.
You're right. I'm wrong. It's
as soon as I turn around, you're talking to the owner. I know how you are. All right. The Cardinals are at 3. They're not, I don't know what would have to happen for them to get the first overall pick. It's not happening, basically. So there, I think you're either thinking about trading down, and it may even be, you may be out of the Marvin Harrison Jr. business if you stay there. But it feels like the top 2 picks are going to go to quarterback. So Marvin Harrison Jr., what has to happen for you to trade out of that pick if Marvin Harrison's sitting there staring you in the face?
Well, they did get a lot of draft capital last year when Houston came up and got Will Anderson. So first year of the program, will they continue to try to accumulate draft capital? But it's hard to pass up a blue chip player, especially at the receiver position, and how important the receiver position is now to quarterbacks. So I think if Marvin Harrison wasn't there, I would seriously consider trading down. Although Fashanu is going to be sitting there, maybe you can get an alt if you move down a little bit. You have to understand who's behind you, how far you can go back before losing 1 player or 2 players that you covet. Because if you move down too far and you lost both tackles and Marvin Harrison Jr., then I'm not feeling very good. Although to me, a consolation prize would be a Dallas Turner, because they do need an edge rush or 2 on the defensive side of the ball.
By the way, they have the 17th pick as well. That's the Will Anderson trade down pick that they got last April. So they have 2 first-round picks. They can do a lot. Kyler Murray, he had an interception in their loss to San Francisco, and there's no shame in that. I think he's actually exceeding expectations in terms of the way he's played. We'll see how the front office and coaching staff feel about him, but I think that's their quarterback going forward. So that's one less piece of the puzzle to solve, and now you just sort of build around him. All right. The Commanders have benched. We'll go through this quickly and then get on to getting on. Commanders have benched Sam Howell. Commanders fans were quite angry with me a few weeks ago when my last mock draft, I had them taking Jaden Daniels at number 4. Well, they benched Sam Howell. You could certainly, they need offensive line help, no doubt about it. Sam Howell's been sacked 45 million times, it feels like. There's going to be a new coaching staff there, it feels like, as well. If you have a chance to get a quarterback at 4 and you don't know
what? Your theory, you may be looking like the smartest man in the room.
Finally.
You never know. I mean, Sam Howell, if you looked at the first 3 quarters of the season, let's say, or 8 to 10 games, you were saying, yeah, this guy has a chance to be our guy. He's smart. He's tougher than all get out. He made some NFL type throws. He was accurate at all levels of the field. And then for whatever reason, I don't know what the culture is in that locker room right now, or does everybody know that it's maybe coming to an end? But all of a sudden, he has a habit of throwing pick sixes. Didn't look good in the last game. So what is the disconnect? Or why all of a sudden did he look like he was on the rise and then took a big dip? First year starting quarterback, going through growing pains. But if Ron Rivera and even if the front office is there or not there, they're going to have to make some tough decisions and truly analyze where Sam Howell is, and is he the quarterback? And that's one thing that owners are going to ask to get us to the Super Bowl or not. And he's showing flashes of it, but young quarterbacks still too inconsistent to really put a stamp on that.
So that's something else we have to sort out and figure out how it works. Something I want to mention, and then we'll get to getting on here officially. I want to find the mock draft that I did for HQ on Monday that's not on the website. I want to talk about the Chargers in particular. They're currently at number 8.
They're not taking a quarterback.
Hopefully they're not taking a quarterback. They have that sorted out. By the way, before we talk about the Chargers, what they should do draft-wise, Rick, are you willing to confirm, deny, or you just want to stay silent on the report I saw in The Athletic that you will be one of the candidates potentially interviewed for the Chargers now open?
I am very, very, very happy being in this podcast and sitting in the corner of the room watching you conduct this podcast as the general manager. And as long as I can sit next to the owner in the corner, I will continue. And Debo, to me, although you and him have a little thing going on the side when you do all your coup meetings without me involved in them, I consider Debo the owner of this podcast.
Yeah, so he's the one you're there it is. There it is. That's from The Athletic over the weekend. One of the many, I think there was a list of maybe 10 or 12 candidates and Spielman was on there.
Yeah. Move on, people.
I tell you what, how impressive is it? Rick, you went 87 and 72 in those 10 years. Made the playoffs 4 times, including the NFC Championship game, and that was the Saints loss. Is that what that was?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, that NFC Championship game, that was the Philadelphia loss.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And then the other one was the Bounty Gate in New Orleans. We were to the NFC Championship twice. We lost to New Orleans when we had Brett Favre. We had 12 minutes.
Oh, wait.
Took us out of field goal range.
Wait, you were the GM when Brett Favre was there?
I was the vice president of player personnel.
Okay, and that's when Greg Williams got in trouble. Oh, God, how did I not know about that?
Twice in my tenure at Minnesota, we got to the NFC Championship game.
Well, 87 and 72 is a fantastic record. I think our record here is 107 and 0, 107 episodes to 0. So your winning percentage has gone up. All right, folks, you heard it here first. So when Rick takes that Chargers job, we can bring this back up to him and ask him what happens. Hopefully, Debo, he'll bring us along to be the podcast team that documents his day-to-day. Nothing, Rick?
No, can we move on in life?
Yeah.
There's going to be
Rick, LA, Hallmark. We talked about it.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, you want to know a quick story? I got an email from my pickleball group since I'm retired. And Hallmark is actually shooting a movie on the island. And,
you told us you fell asleep when they came to the bar.
Well, I found out at the pickleball resort that I belong to that they're looking for extras for a beach party.
Oh, so you're going to be there in your bathing suit?
I doubt I'm going to sit there between 10 and 5 waiting to get chosen.
So you're not willing to put in the hard work is what I'm hearing. You want to just be a first-round pick and just show up?
No, I've put in my due time. If they find my talents as an extra, they will come out and get me. And with my representative, Debo being my representative to get me into the Hallmark movie as an extra, I'm going to rely on Debo as my agent to do that.
I don't know. It sounds like you're the DeJuan Jones of extras.
You like that one, Debo. All right. Well, we'll keep tabs on that storyline as well, since you are not going.
I did make a $100 bet to some people in Minnesota that I would eventually be on a Hallmark movie, even as an extra. And
this is your opportunity. Just go stand in line for 4 hours, and then you can make your $100.
It's actually a 6-hour commitment. Which,
okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Debo would be very excited.
We will skip a show if it falls on a show day.
Absolutely.
You want me to do the podcast from the Hallmark movie set?
Wear your With the First Pick podcast collared shirt, and that could be a start. Oh, man, this is all coming together. All right, so we look forward to that. Keep us up to date on that, Rick, because that's certainly exciting news for the podcast. In terms of the Chargers at 8 in the latest mock draft here, I had him taking a cornerback, Nate Wiggins. 3 offensive tackles were already off the board, Fashanu, Alt, and J.C. Latham. So they could have gone in that direction. They could have even gone edge rusher, but they have so many holes on defense, and that's one of the first areas you have to fix. You okay with that?
Yeah, no, they need help everywhere. Since the tackles are gone, they definitely need a right tackle. If J.C. Latham was still there, I would have taken him. But they need corner help. J.C. Jackson was a bust in a free agent signing. The other corner, Davis, I believe.
Mike Davis had a tough afternoon.
They ended up benching him, so they definitely can use corner help there. Now, is Wiggins the best corner left on the board? I don't know about that, but I'm going to respect your opinion and go with what you're saying is that would be a great choice, GM Ryan Wilson. Are you taking a GM job?
Assistant GM.
Okay.
Assistant to the GM, as Dwight Schumer said. Well, we've talked about Nate Wiggins and Kool-Aid McKinstry before in the fall. And the issue with Kool-Aid, we'll just see how fast he is. And that'll go a long way to determining it. And Nate Wiggins, I think we both agreed, was better in terms of being more physical than what we saw in 2022. So those are 2 of the guys at the top of the list. And And there'll be some others that we'll certainly talk about. And the other thing I'll mention quickly, the Titans are next up at number 9. Again, the offensive tackles are gone here. I don't think you want to take a interior offensive lineman this high. That's what they did last draft, and that's actually worked out for him pretty well with Skoronski. I had him taking Malik Neighbors. He was a wide receiver 2, and we know the guys can't get open, so I figured that's a good starting spot.
Yeah, no, I love he's my number 2 receiver right now on the board, on whatever big board you have. I don't have a board or a mock draft. I just
You have a Rolodex.
Yeah, I have a Rolodex. He's my number 2 guy right now. And they would definitely, if Will Levis is going to be their quarterback of the future going forward, tease Debo, because we're going to talk about that, then he definitely needs another offensive weapon that is an explosive playmaker. And Neighbors fits that category.
Yeah,